I never imagined how my daily comforts would vanish in the harsh realities of the Middle Ages. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun shone brightly, but darkness loomed over my heart. The scent of fresh bread filled the air, yet hunger gnawed at my stomach like a relentless beast. I stood there, trembling hands clutching the tattered remains of my hope. My family had always been close. My mother's laughter rang out like music, a melody I held dear. My father's strong arms wrapped around me in warm embrace, making the world seem safe and sound. But that day, the day they took him, reality shattered. Rumors swirled in the market like a summer storm. Whispers of sorcery and betrayal danced on the wind. I could still hear the echoes of the villagers' gasps, their wide eyes searching for truth, their lips curling with curiosity. My father, a simple farmer, accused of witchcraft. It was madness. As I stepped through the town square, the cobblestones felt rough beneath my bare feet. The gray sky mirrored my despair, heavy with unshed tears. I could almost taste the salt if not for the lump lodged painfully in my throat. Every face I saw bore a mask of fear. Shadows lurked in every corner, gathering like dark thoughts. I spotted Agnes, the old crone, with her gnarled hands and wild, white hair. She shouted something about omens and signs, her voice crackling like dry leaves beneath my urgency. I wanted to scream back, to tell her that her words were poison, but silence wrapped around me like a shroud. Then came the guards, storming through, their armor clanking like thunder. They wore grim expressions, eyes cold as the iron of their swords. My heart raced. Could they be coming for me next? The scent of iron mixed with fear was suffocating, and I pressed against the wall, wishing to fade away. I remembered the legends, tales of brave knights and magical beings, but this was no fairy tale, it was a nightmare. What did fate have in store for me? Would I, too, be cast aside like the remnants of a discarded meal? With each fleeting heartbeat, the fear grew. I needed answers, and fast. I could feel the world closing in, the air thickening. And just when I thought I saw a glimpse of truth, a figure appeared behind the shadows, cloaked and mysterious. My breath hitched. Who was this stranger? What secrets could they hold? As I stood there, emotion flooding my senses, I felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference, let's connect. The figure stepped forward, the soft glow of the lantern light revealing a face marked by years of hardship, yet the eyes were kind, gentle pools of compassion amidst the chaos. I had not expected comfort to breathe through a stranger, but a flicker of something alive surged within me. I held my breath, frozen between the grip of fear and a glimmer of hope. Come closer, child, the stranger beckoned softly, the voice low and soothing. There is much I can tell you, and your heart needs to hear it. That I hesitated, a primal instinct urging me to flee, yet curiosity tugged me forward. As I stepped into the light, I noticed the contours of his face, the lines telling stories of struggles and resilience, more than a mere coincidence of fate. There was something familiar in his presence that slipped under my defenses, igniting a small flame within my chest. You seek answers about your father, he stated, his gaze penetrating but tender. You are brave for one so young to bear such a burden. Bravery? I hardly felt that way. I wanted to ask him how he knew, how he understood the aching void left by my father, but words stumbled in my throat. Instead, all that escaped was a choked whisper. Please, help me. Before the dawn of shadow, he started, his voice unhurried, weaving around the weight in my heart. There are always whispers of truth that seek to be heard. Your father is not the monster they say he is. Each syllable was a balm to my raw ache, but the fight against the darkness of the village's rumors was a battle I could hardly fathom. How could it possibly be true? Yet, beneath layers of confusion, the light of hope began to emerge like a sunbreaking dawn. But why would they take him? Why would they accuse him? He took a moment, his expression grave. Fear breeds suspicion, and suspicion breeds chaos. There is more at play than you understand. Others are involved, forces that shall stop at nothing to keep their secrets hidden. The thought of unseen enemies, puppeteers manipulating lives from the shadows, sent a chill skirting down my spine. Just as I began to grasp his words, a terrible sound shattered the night, the clang of metal accompanied by shouts drifting through the air like desperate cries for help. My heart raced anew. They come, the stranger said abruptly, urgency creeping into his tone. We must go. No, where? I stammered, instincts poised to run yet anchored by fear. Somewhere safe, he urged, taking hold of my wrist, his grip firm and warm. Trust me, and I will lead you. Fleeting thoughts collided in my mind, jumbling with memories of my mother's embrace and my father's reassuring voice. I desperately wanted to trust, yet every tale I had known warned against taking leaps into the unknown. But before I could question further, he dragged me into the encroaching shadows, drawn not by choice but by necessity. As the chaos of the night unfolded around us, our feet pounded against the cobblestones in a frantic rhythm that matched the beating of my heart. We ducked behind a crumbling stone wall just as a squad of guards thundered past. Stay low, he whispered, barely a breath above the wind. We pressed ourselves to the ground, the cool earth beneath me grounding my spiraling thoughts. For a brief moment, as the world collapsed into chaos beyond our hiding place, I felt the warmth of the stranger's presence beside me. But the illusion of safety was temporary. An unexpected jab of sharp pain coursed through my heart. It was the realization that I might never see my father again, that I was running away from the very truth I sought to uncover. My father. I gasped, emotions ripping through me. We have to go back, listen to me. He insisted, his eyes searching mine with an intensity that thrilled and frightened me all at once. Going back now is madness. There are forces at work that would see you harmed. We must reach the glade. It is our only chance, the glade. I echoed, confusion mingling with desperation. What are you talking about? Time is against us, he urged, shaking his head. I swear on my life, your father is innocent. But there are things you must learn, things that cannot be spoken in the light. You are stronger than you think, but you cannot do this alone. At those words, a wave of emotion crashed over me, a swell of determination shadowed by doubt. I felt the depth of the world shifting beneath my feet, yet the weight of his gaze urged me to decide. The cries of my father rang in my ears, disgusting me with the sound of my own cowardice. And just as the decision began to blossom within me, a sudden sound echoed just beyond the wall, a gasp followed by the unmistakable clang of armor shuffling swiftly our way. My heart hurled itself into my throat. Run! The stranger commanded, pulling me with him as we darted into the fog, uncertainty nipping closely at our heels. I knew without doubt that this was only the beginning. Whatever awaited me in the glade, it promised to be far darker than the night itself. The cold air wrapped around us like a bitter cloak as we ran, each heavy breath mingling with the mist rolling off the ground. My heart pounded, echoing like a war drum, a frantic rhythm urging me to escape the shadows chasing us. I followed the stranger, the dim light of the village fading into the distance as the forest closed in, dark and wild like a hungry beast. Keep close. He urged, his voice barely audible over the rustle of leaves and the distant sounds of guards scouring the village. The path can be treacherous, but it is our lifeline. His grip on my wrist was firm, grounding me amidst the chaos. Fear surged within me, wrapping its icy tendrils around my heart. But beneath it lay a flicker of something, an insistent yearning to uncover the truth, the belief that my father was not the man the village portrayed. Each step forward was a rebellion against everything I believed to be true, and I found myself torn between wanting to discover more and the suffocating fear of what lay ahead. In a moment of confusion, I broke away from him, scrambling to catch my breath as panic clawed at me. What if they catch us? I blurted, desperation coloring my voice. What if my father should? The stranger snapped, his eyes wide with urgency. We mustn't speak of him here. They have eyes and ears everywhere. Instead, trust in what is hidden. The glade holds secrets that may change everything you know. Our eyes locked for a brief moment, and I could see a depth of understanding etched in the lines of his face. Though fear lingered like a fading specter, I also sensed a strange warmth in this stranger, a flicker of hope that ignited my spirit. What's your name? I asked, feeling the need to bridge the gap between us as we navigated the darkness. Call me Eli, he replied softly, the name rolling off his tongue like a promise. And yours, Lena, I managed, the name feeling fragile against the weight of the night. As we plunged deeper into the thicket, the moonlight danced through the trees, illuminating a narrow path shrouded in silver mist. For a moment, the journey grew quiet, just the two of us surrounded by nature's night song. My heartbeat slowed to a steady thrum as Eli led me with confidence, his assurance wrapping around me like a shield. In the glade, he resumed, there are those who remember your father differently. People who loved him. They will protect you, as they once protected him. His words were a lifeline I clung to, yet another pang of sorrow sliced through me. I longed for my father, a desperate hope now tethered to a fragile thread. What kind of people? I asked, curiosity seeping into my voice. Eli hesitated, glancing around as if gauging the safety of his next words. Outcasts, some call them. Survivors of a world that turned its back on them. But they are not what they seem. Many have gifts, powers that withstand the darkest of magic. I repeated, my mind swirling. Is that real? His lips curled into a faint smile, as if the weight of ancient secrets danced on the tip of his tongue. In this world, Lena, what seems impossible often walks hand in hand with reality. You might find that you, too, possess something powerful, something that can illuminate the truth. That we pressed on, our footsteps quiet against the damp earth, and together, we carved a path toward the unknown. My thoughts spun, did I hold some latent power? Would I be brave enough to wield it? But just as a fragile thread of hope began to take root, the sounds of pursuit crawled through the night. A chorus of shouts bounced through the trees like a thunderstorm breaking loose. I felt the energy shift, a tension thickening in the air, and without another word, Eli turned on his heel, pulling me away from the urgency of it all. Faster! He urged as the dark shape of the forest enveloped us. In the distance, torches flickered, casting sinister shadows as guards combed the underbrush. My heart raced again, a wild drum against my ribs, pushing me to move faster than I thought my legs could carry me. Suddenly, Eli paused, glancing to the side, hesitating. My confusion spilled over. What? What is it? I whispered urgently, but his eyes were transfixed, and he held up a finger to silence me. That a broken murmur drifted through the trees, a sound that twisted my gut with unease. It's her, he breathed, recognition mingled with fear. Without warning, he dashed toward a clump of bramble, tugging at the boughs and revealing a hidden path. Who? I pressed, my desperate thoughts rapidly unraveling. Someone who can help us, he assured, yet I could hear the tremor threading through his voice. Fear pierced the air around us, an unseen force pushing against my resolve. Come on! Just as I stepped into the narrow passage, a piercing scream shattered the night, a sound that was unmistakably human. It tore through me like a blade, the sheer anguish resonating with my deepest fears. I faltered, terror clawing at my throat. Lena, we have to go. Ella's urgency brought me back, and despite every instinct wanting to rush toward the source, I gripped the decision to remain focused. But as we plunged deeper into the bramble, a new understanding crept over me. The truth wasn't just out there waiting, it throbbed within the very shadows chasing us. And though Ella's presence felt like a lantern in the dark, the scream echoed a chilling reminder that not all paths would lead to safety, and time was running out. Stay close. Eli commanded as we slipped further into the depths of the woods. I could hear the distant shouts growing louder, weaving a tapestry of terror that threatened to capture us in its depths. In that moment of uncertainty, I wrestled with my choices, the fragments of clarity slipping through my fingers. Little did I know, the dark forest would soon reveal secrets meant for no one's ears, unraveling not just the mystery of my father but shattering the very foundation upon which I stood. The bramble thickened around us, branches scratching at my arms like menacing fingers, trying to draw me back into the chaos we were fleeing. As Eli led the way, his breathing steadied, a calmness enveloping him that felt contagious. Yet, doubt gnawed at me like an insatiable beast. Each step deeper into the forest was a step further from the familiar, a step further from the mother I might never see again. Where are we going? I questioned, trying to outpace the encroaching panic that threatened to drown me. To hide, he replied, glancing back at me, his face tightened with determination. We need to reach the glade. It's not far now. What if they find us? What if? Focus on your breath, he urged, silencing my growing fear with the most basic of instructions. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Your mind will play tricks on you if you let it. His steady presence encouraged me to ground myself in the rhythm of my own body, and I mimicked him, drawing deeper breaths. As we trudged through the undergrowth, the consistent rustle of branches above seemed to whisper secrets, threading through the air a mix of dread and magic. The call of the unknown tugged at my heartstrings, drawing me and yet instilling fear that what I might find could shatter my already fragile sense of self. Moments passed in silence, the tension thick as the forest shrouded us in its embrace, luring us into its depths, onto a path I could not see. With each crack of a branch and each flicker of light in the distance, the reality of our situation settled heavily on my shoulders. I could hardly grasp the weight of my father's name. It felt simultaneously like a shield and a curse. Just then, Eli halted and twisted his body to block my path. Quiet, he hissed. Heart pounding in my ears, I strained to listen through the cacophony of fear in my mind. The distant shouts of guards faded just long enough for the forest to whisper back. I could almost believe it was alive, and as the shadows danced around us, I could not shake the feeling that it harbored a presence, a spirit watching and waiting. That charged silence. Eli glanced at me, his brow furrowed with concern. Stay close, he whispered, and I couldn't help but notice the worry flickering behind his furtive gaze. It fueled my own sense of uncertainty. If the one guiding me felt fear, was there any safety for me? He then leaned forward, and for a brief moment, I caught a glimpse of what lay ahead. In the distance, a warm glow flickered through the trees, a sight that stirred something deep within me. It was almost inviting, like the promise of home on a cold night. What is that? I asked, my voice hoarse with anxiety. Light, he replied simply, and those who might offer us refuge. But doubt flashed in my mind. Refuge? For whom? I shivered at the thought that the kindness I sought might come at a price I wasn't ready to pay. Then, a low rustle pierced the air, and before I could process it, Eli grabbed my arm tightly, yanking me into the concealing foliage just as the shouts drew closer. I held my breath, feeling the vibration of his rapid pulse against my skin. I wanted to cry out, to scream against the frustrating helplessness, but the fear of being found kept my voice locked away. The guards' voices grew louder, desperate and ominous, echoing around us like the closing curtain on a play. Search every shadow. One barked, and I flinched at the raw authority in his tone. They can't have gone far, they shouldn't be able to, another added darkly, but the woods have a way of lying to the untrained eye. As they trudged past our hiding spot, I felt Ella's body tense beside me, every muscle coiled like a spring. I couldn't blame him. As fear wrapped around me like a suffocating shroud, I realized I was now part of something much larger than myself. Alongside my struggle was an entire web of lives affected by my father's past, lives intertwined with my own fate. As the guards moved further away, a sudden rustling at our feet shifted my focus. A small creature, perhaps a fox or a rabbit, darted past us, startled by the sudden presence of our bodies. It sprang into the bushes opposite of where we hid, its low growl somehow laced with urgency, as if warning us that time was slipping away. Go! Eli urged, gripping my wrist again and dragging me through the dense underbrush to the edge of the glowing light. We emerged into a clearing, and the sight caught my breath in my throat. Before us stood an ancient tree, larger than any I'd seen before, its gnarled roots twisting across the ground like arms reaching for the sky. Luminescent flowers blossomed around its base, illuminating the darkness and creating a sanctuary that felt almost otherworldly. "Is this the glade?" I breathed, awe flooding through me. "Yes," Eli murmured, his voice barely a whisper. "But we aren't safe yet." As I stepped forward, a strange energy surged through me, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. This place hummed with life, resonating with secrets and age-old magic. I sensed the quiet pulse of the earth underneath my feet, a heartbeat that matched my own. A whisper crawled along my spine, something ancient stirring to life, waiting for me to claim my truth. But just as hope began to blossom, the sound of rushing footsteps shattered the mystical tranquility. Ellis' face drained of color as he turned, terror ignited in his eyes. "We have to hide." Before I could react, a figure erupted from the underbrush, cloaked in shadow and revealed solely by the glow of the glade. The moment our eyes met, I recognized the twisted form. It wasn't a guard, nor the spectral vision I'd least expected. It was someone I knew, someone whose gaze pierced through the layers of deception and doubt. And in that electric moment of recognition, the ground felt like it was shifting beneath me, revealing truths intertwined with the very fabric of my existence, truths I wasn't prepared to confront. "Lena," the figure breathed, voice carrying a weight of unspoken words, the voice of a stranger I was supposed to trust and yet was terrified to embrace. The path before me diverged, leading me toward hope, or a deeper destruction. And with that cry, the shadows closed tighter around us, the fragments of my world threatening to unravel as I stood on the precipice of revelation. As the figure stepped forward, illuminated by the ethereal glow of the glade, dread wrapped its icy fingers around my heart. "Lena," the voice pierced the heavy air with a tremor that reverberated through the silence. My breath caught painfully in my throat as shadows danced around this person, and my heart raced to a rhythm both familiar and frightening. "Zara?" I gasped, the name slipping from my lips like a forgotten prayer. The woman before Meth, daughter of my mother's closest friend, the girl I used to ignore at family gatherings, looked different now. Her hair, once neatly braided, now fell in wild waves about her shoulders, tangled and tousled as if she had been wrestling with the very elements. Her eyes burned with a fierce determination, but there was a weariness deep in her gaze that spoke of battles fought and losses endured. "Lena, we need to move." "They're not far behind," she urged, her breath hitching at the edges of urgency. "You don't know what they'll do if they catch you." Though my mind screamed against the layers of confusion, my body reacted instinctively, fueled by the unbreakable tie of kinship woven through years of shared lineage, both straining and anchoring me. I turned to Eli, who cast me a grave glance, understanding the weight of this reunion. His grip remained firm on my wrist, tethering me to reality and reminding me of the danger that lurked nearby. "What are you doing here?" I asked Zara, anger tinged with desperation bubbling under the surface. "Why didn't you come sooner?" I couldn't," she stammered, her vulnerability cracking open as shadows flickered across her features. "After the announcement about your father, I had to leave. They were hunting down anyone connected to him. I thought they'd find you first. Then you shouldn't have come back." I shot back, panic rising like bile in my throat. "You need to go, stay away from me," and just like that, the warmth of our fragile reunion turned frigid. Zara's face paled, her spirit faltering under the weight of my fear. "I can't leave you, Lena." "Not again," she pleaded, extending her arms as though to embrace me, but all I could feel was the invisible barrier, thick with uncertainty, between us. Eli shifted, visibly torn over my reluctance to accept her presence, the chaos in my mind swirling tighter. "We can't afford to dwell on the past right now," he reminded me gently. "If the guards are right behind us, we have to move." Before I could process his words, a raucous shout echoed through the trees, snapping me back to the peril we faced. "Search the area. They can't be far." With renewed energy, Zara's resolve hardened. "This way," she beckoned, her voice everyone's lifeline. We charged forward into the heart of the glade, the warm light wrapping around us like a protective cloak. But as we fled, the tension brewed between our tangled emotions, Zara's presence a surge of remembrance and regret, and my own uncertainty swimming through shadows of hope and anger. The duel of our conflicting hearts was relentless. Eli led the way, his eyes darting back and forth, scanning every bush and branch for signs of danger. I stayed close to him but felt the gravitational pull of Zara. Each stride she took behind us reminded me of the younger days, the comfort of shared laughter quickly replaced by regret and fear now that our innocence was thrust into a world unrecognizable. As we crossed into another thick patch of trees, Zara suddenly stumbled, barely catching herself against a gnarled trunk, gasping softly. I turned abruptly, concern flooding my chest. "Are you okay?" she faltered, but her eyes darted behind me, and the sharp glint of fear struck me cold. The shadows loomed large, and amid my concern flickered an inkling of doubt, shadowing her face like an uninvited memory. "Go," she urged, her resolve crumbling. "I'll catch up." "Just go." "No," I nearly shouted. "You can't just. Do you think they care who falls behind?" She spat, frustration shadowing her voice. "You'll just be risking your life for nothing." "I'll survive. Just go." There was something raw and desperate in her gaze that compelled me to listen. An invisible thread pulled taut between us, the shared history of sisterhood tangled with choice, fear, and the unrelenting consequences of the past. For a breathless moment, I felt the world tilt, a cacophony of thoughts and emotions racing against the clock, the branches of the trees echoing a haunting choose, choose, choose as if they held the answer. A part of me screamed to protect her, while the rest feared doom was waiting just behind that crooked trunk, dark and merciless. Eli took a step closer to me, his eyes filled with a concern that mirrored my own. "Lena, we don't." But I could see the fear lurking in Zara's gaze, the fierce fire within her extinguishing year after year, lost to the pain of survival. Something in me cracked open, and before I made my choice, a sharp cry echoed from the depths of the shadows, an unmistakable roar of authority. The guards were closing in, the air trembled as I stood at the crossroads of loyalty and fear, Zara's eyes pleading for understanding while Ella's presence grounded me amid the storm. "Stay hidden." Willing strength flooded my veins, and with resolve born of desperation, I turned back toward Zara, knowing I had to decide. "You'll follow us. Remember, no one is left behind." Just as I reached for her arm, another shout echoed from behind the trees, and time stretched, heavy with uncertain dread. Before I could grasp her hand, a crack like thunder erupted, followed by the rushing sound of branches snapping, chaos unspooling into night. A figure barreled through the underbrush, casting a long shadow into the ethereal glow of the glade, and as my heart seized with newly awakened fear, reality blurred and morphed into darkness. "Run!" Eli shouted, urgent and raw with panic. The moment hung, brimming with dread and unheeded intentions, and as I took one last glance back at Zara before being whisked away, a shocking revelation flared in my mind. She wasn't just running from the guards, the truth of our tangled past was inextricably linked, and it dawned on me that perhaps what haunted us both was too burdensome to escape. "I'll find you," I shouted back, a desperate promise, and with that hollow echo sealing our destinies, I felt the last embers of our childhood flicker out, leaving us to face the shadows that loomed ahead. The forest swallowed us whole, the shadows thickening with each heartbeat as Eli and I dashed deeper into the unknown. The crack of twigs snapping underfoot and the raspy breath of branches reaching out like skeletal hands was an ever-present reminder of how close the danger lurked. My heart, once tethered by fear, now quickened with guilt. Zara's determined eyes haunted me as we fled, the weight of her sacrifice settled heavily on my shoulders. "Do you have a plan?" Ella's voice broke through my swirling thoughts, bringing clarity to the chaos. His breath was ragged, and the worry etched across his brow mirrored my own grave apprehensions. "2 Don't know," I stammered, struggling to process the enormity of Zara's plight, unsure how my life could forge a path of safety for either of us. Every instinct inside me screamed for Zara to follow, to fight through the fear together, and yet here I was, separating myself further from her. As we veered around a thick-set trunk, a pulse of unexpected kindness emerged, a flicker of deep light illuminating an opening ahead, a small hidden glen. "There, Eli." I pointed, hope igniting faintly, urging us toward refuge. "We can hide there for a moment," he nodded, determination flashing in his eyes as we rushed into the clearing, the soft rays filtering through the canopy above wrapping around us like a warm embrace. We paused for a moment, catching our breath beneath the luminescent leaves. I leaned against a moss-laden rock, my heart still racing, but the encompassing tranquility offered a veil of solace from the chaos outside. "Do you think she made it?" I whispered, my voice trembling as I wrestled with the turmoil inside. Eli hesitated, uncertainty creeping into his gaze. "She's strong, Lena. If anyone can navigate these woods, it's her. But we need to focus on ourselves right now. We can't lose ourselves in what we can't control." His voice was steadfast, but my heart twisted with the thought of leaving Zara behind. The specter of our childhood memories loomed larger than ever. "It should have been different, Eli. She should have been with me, and instead she risked everything for me." The tears that I fought to hold back now threatened to spill over, a barrage of guilt and sorrow. "Lena, you're not to blame," he said, stepping closer, and the warmth emanating from his presence ignited a flicker of strength. "We need to think of what we can do next instead of dwelling on the past." With a heavy sigh, I nodded, although the guilt wrapped tighter around my heart as his words settled. Eli was right, but the choice weighed upon me like a storm cloud, a constant reminder of time slipping through my fingers. Just then, a rustle broke the quietude riffling through the underbrush. My instinct to bolt kicked in, but as the tension thickened, Eli placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. "Stay calm," he murmured as he drew his dagger. Moments dragged on endlessly, and everything felt poised in that delicate space between danger and hope. Just as I opened my mouth to urge him to listen, a small figure burst into the clearing, a ferret. Its fur bristled as it darted past us, oblivious to the chaos surrounding it. My heart fluttered for a brief moment at the absolutely absurd encounter, but Eli chuckled softly, and the tension eased just enough to let me relax. "See? Even the woods want us to lighten up a little." I shot him a glare, the corners of my lips twitching upward despite the gravity of our situation. "You must be far more optimistic than I am," I replied, faking annoyance. As we shared a brief moment of levity, I caught sight of something glinting through the trees, a shimmer of metal perhaps. I strained to discern its nature while Eli remained lost in our light-hearted exchange, but then horror crashed over me as realization dawned. "Eli! It's not just guards, they're here. They're looking for us," I cried, fear bubbling to the surface again as I pointed toward the clearing's edge. Reinforced chains hung low from a cluster of horse-mounted soldiers, their armor gleaming ominously as they scanned the area, eyes sharp and watchful. Anxiety clawed at me with renewed vigor and sent cold dread coursing through my veins. "That we have to go," Eli urged, and without a backward glance, we slipped deeper into the cover of the trees, the echoes of the guards' voices growing louder behind us. As we ran, my mind raced along a new thread of thought. With Zara's future wrapped in uncertainty, the dire realization twisted in my gut. She wasn't merely a sister in this journey but a key player in the game of survival we had found ourselves entwined in. How had our fates converged, and yet how helpless was I to change the narrative? What if Zara's return was more than mere coincidence? Suddenly, a cry erupted behind us there. Two running shadows. Headed towards the river. The threat lingered in the air, palpable and looming as some bleak foreboding that chained us to this cursed reality. But another realization pierced the fog of panic rushing through my mind. If they were pursuing us, they might already know the connection between Zara and me. The guards might have understood the risks and were desperate to chase down anyone linked to my father's legacy. "Eli, wait." I gasped to a halt as the implications sunk in. "They're using Zara against us. If we've entered their game, what would they do to?" Before I could finish, Ella's eyes darkened with realization. "We need to split up," he said urgently, leaning closer so that only I could hear. "Draw them away from above all else." No. I argued desperately. Given the gravity of our predicament, the right thing felt hazardous. "We can't leave one another. We have to stick together, trust me, Lena, it's the only way." "I'll find you again," he insisted, resolve thickening his voice. My heart surged with desperation, battling against the impossible choice unfolding before me. Time stretched thin as I formulated a plan in my mind, the pull of loyalty battling it out with instinct. Then, "You'll find Zara," I murmured, the thought igniting a flicker of resolve as hope anchored my heart but fear twisted inside me too. If I let him go, would the threads of our narratives entangle forever, or would he fall victim to the shadows? "Lena," he whispered as he pressed his forehead against mine, urgency triggering the fire in our connection. "I promise, I'll bring her back if I can. You have to trust me." With one last exchange loaded with unsaid feelings and convictions, he darted toward the tree line, soon blending into the forest's tenebrous embrace. I clung to the anvil of hope in my heart, pushing back against the thought of separation. With every beat of the distance growing, I felt the air thicken again with uncertainty, and as the guards charged toward me, their ominous shadows fell long and dark over the clearing. Clenching my teeth, I turned and sprinted forward, my heart racing, filled with dread and unrelenting determination to carve out a future, somehow. But as I rushed headlong into the narrowing confines of the forest woven with my fears, a single thought sent chills down my spine. What if it was too late for Zara, and too late for anything I had ever hoped for? The trees pressed closer around me as I moved deeper into the forest, the thickening branches clawing at my skin like desperate hands. Each heartbeat was a reminder that I was alone, and the chirping of the forest creatures now felt like mocking laughter in the face of my isolation. I held my breath, desperately trying to stave off the rising sense of panic. Eli fighting our way back to Zara. That was my anchor, the single thread of hope I clung to while grappling with the abyss of uncertainty void of loyalty. But, as the guards' shouts echoed through the woods, I could almost feel the sinister grip of fate tightening around my throat. They were coming for me, I thought, each footfall loud against the thick carpet of fallen leaves. The memory of Zara's fierce resolve tugged at my heart. "I'll save you. I'll bring you back." But what if she was losing that battle right now? What if every second spent sprinting through this cold, clammy wood was seconds she didn't have? With every sharp inhale, despair spiraled deeper. I had to focus in the next step, on the moment I lived. I couldn't let my thoughts spiral into chaos. The fate of my sister lay within my grasp, even if those grasping hands now belonged to me. Suddenly, a sharp snap shook me from my thoughts. My heart quickened, a wave of dread crashing over me as someone moved quietly among the brush behind me. I turned, ready to make a run for it, but instead stumbled over an exposed root. The world tilted dangerously, and I hit the ground hard. "Hey!" A voice called out, low but frantic, slicing through the tangled shadows surrounding me. I squinted up and found a stranger, a scruffy man whose face was half covered by a ragged hood. His eyes darted around, assessing the tree line behind me. "Get up," he hissed, uncharacteristically panicked. "They're coming." Instinct kicked in. I scrambled to my feet just as he grabbed my arm, pulling me into the undergrowth. We landed hard against the cool, damp earth, hidden beneath a thicket, blood song drumming in my ears. My heart raced as we lay there, the oppressive silence enveloping us. "They're after you, aren't they?" He glanced sideways, his breath heavy. He looked older than Eli, perhaps in his 30s, his eyes sharp and haunted like they carried unspoken burdens that I swallowed, hesitant to respond, wary of traps hidden in every word. "What do you know about it?" My voice was a whisper, but it quavered with the fear that came from exposure. "More than you'd think," he replied, urgency lacing his tone as he peered back at the shadows above. "I've seen them before. They don't care who gets caught in the crossfire. They'll use you to get to others. I've been running for a while." He gestured down the narrow path we'd just come through. "But there's a way out, I swear. You'll need my help to navigate through them." My instincts warned me against relying on a stranger. Yet, something behind his eyes, a shard of sincerity, perhaps invited a flicker of hope. "Why would you help me?" I blurted, suspicion and gratitude wrestling within me. "Because I know what it's like to lose someone," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. "And I can't watch more innocents suffer." An echo of familiarity washed over me. A sense of obligation filled the air between us. If he was in this dangerous world too, maybe we could fight back together. My fingers tightened around the rawness of his narrativia. Man, an acquaintance stitched into purpose, where do we go? I found myself asking, needing an avenue if only to keep despair at bay. Not far. But we'll have to move quickly, he urged in an intense hush. Follow me. We no longer had time to chat. As we stealthily crawled away from the thickets, a chill prickled my spine. I stole a glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see a guard leaping out of the shadows, but instead found a cluster of heavy clouds tumbling in, threatening a storm. Dark, heavy, and relentless like what was weighing on my heart. The stranger led me through an intricate maze of trees, weaving in and out of twisted roots and vines. As my feet fell in line with his, I stole quick glances toward his face, searching for reassurance that I wasn't walking blindly into another trap. Yet, it was his determination that captivated me even more. He moved with a certain fluidity, as if the forest was a long-lost friend guiding him home. Where are we going? I asked, barely able to catch my breath. Will you take me to Zara? The name burned on my lips, and the thought hung in the air like a ghost. First, we must reach the old cabin, he replied, urgency tinging his voice. It's safe at least for a momento. Gather our thoughts and regroup. You can't afford to let the guards find you unprepared. Hope flickered momentarily, extinguished quickly by the weight of our pursuit. The cage of circumstance that held me tight. My mind raced with visions of Zara facing the adversities I felt helpless in confronting, but the stranger's tone softened, as if sensing my fear. Don't lose hope, he said gently. You can save her, but you have to let me help you. As we swept past thick bushes and dodged treacherous roots, an unrelenting dread lingered, but I felt something else too, a strange sense of kinship in our shared purpose. Perhaps there was hope, not only in retrieving Zara but also in recognizing that there were others who understood the weight of sacrifice and the yearning for survival. We halted abruptly, the cabin dim yet solid, sitting tucked away beneath a towering elm, the thick wood exuding a sense of age and permanence as if it had stood sentinel over many secrets. Inside, he urged quietly, and we slipped through the creaking door, breathless from flight and tethered hopes. The moment we stepped inside, the weight of our reality crashed down around me, the shadows freshly cast by our pursuit settling over us. I cast a glance toward him, searching for answers in his familiar, weathered features, but the unknown clung to us like moonlight tonight. Just as the door creaked closed, a soft sound echoed from the back room, an unmistakable whisper reaching out, fragile yet twined with certainty. Lena. My heart plummeted, recognition washing over me like a rush of icy water. Zara! I shouted, racing forward, hope amplifying the thrum of desperation in my chest. But as I reached for the door, his hand closed around my wrist. Wait! He implored, his eyes filled with warning. You don't know who's in there. My heart sank, the walls of the cabin closing in, as I understood the dreadful implications. If guards followed us here, if we were truly unraveling something larger than ourselves, only one thought kept reverberating within me. Fate of Zara, now uncertain, rested precariously at this cliff's edge where hope waned, and shadows loomed ominously above. With my heart racing and adrenaline surging through my veins, I paused at the door to the back room, the warmth of hope battling against the icy grip of fear. Zara's voice rang clear and pure, a gentle beacon amid the chaos that surrounded us. But his grip tightening around my wrist like iron anchored me in reality, forcing me to confront the darker possibilities lurking just outside the door. Lena, listen to me, he urged, his voice now low and tempered. You don't know what's waiting beyond that door. It might not be her. It was as if he could see the wild hope igniting in my chest, threatening to explode. What do you mean? I nearly shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. She's in there. I know her voice. People can be forced to say anything, especially in moments like this, he murmured, his eyes wary, scanning the edges of the cabin as though danger lurked in the shadows. Just promise me you won't rush in blindly. For a moment, I let his words hang heavy in the air between us, colliding with my fierce determination to save my sister. Every second spent hesitating felt like an eternity, swirling with doubts. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet part of me acknowledged the truth in his warning. I focused intently on his eyes, searching for any hint of deceit, but found only concern. What do we do? I finally asked, my voice steadier, almost resolute that we need a plan. Listen, he spoke softly, turning toward the shadows that encroached around us like an uninvited storm. I'll look first. I'll approach cautiously. Just stay back, out of sight. Reluctantly, I nodded, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. I forced myself to trust him, aware that the fate of Zara and my own liberation was hinged on this fractured alliance. He slipped silently toward the door, moving like a wisp of air, and I cast my gaze down the narrow cabin room, stories coiling around its logs, the dim light casting specters against the walls, shadows mirroring my fears. Zara. He called quietly, the name draping over the darkness. Is anyone there? My fingers tingled with the anticipation of dread, and I stilled my breath, straining to catch any hint of Zara's presence beyond the threshold. And then, a shuffling noise followed by a gasp made my heart soar. Lena. The voice vibrated through my bones, unmistakably hers, although strained and echoing with uncertainty. Can you hear me? I whispered, pained by the sweet ache of her beautiful voice. I'm here. There was a moment of silence before the stranger's voice broke again, but this time he was moving closer, his body poised in the doorway. Hold on, I'm coming in, he said, and with that, he pushed the door open. I could barely contain myself, was poised to spring forward when suddenly he turned to me with wide-eyed urgency. Stay back, he stepped through, and the warmth of the moment just for a heartbeat pulsated toward me, urging me forward. Zara. I called again, this time feeling the familiar embrace of hope wrapping around my heart. Then, as soon as he crossed the threshold, a dark shadow surged from the corner of the room, a figure I hadn't noticed until that moment, cloaked in deception and menace, brandishing a long blade that caught the scant light filtering through the dusty window. Thought you could sneak in, did you? The figure spat, a cruel smirk spreading across his face. Foolish. A rush of instinct propelled me forward, the air thick with the promise of conflict and chaos enveloping us. No. I cried, desperate, ready to charge into the fray even as my feet remained rooted in place, the gravity of the moment constraining my resolve. Lena, I told you to stay, the stranger shouted as he fought back against the sudden ambush, his body moving with a trained grace, but the room leaped with tension. And I remained frozen, the kaleidoscope of fear and dismay churning and swirling around me. Then came Zara's agonized cry, cutting through the frenzy, shattering the paralysis that had me ensnared. Lena, help! That single, heart-wrenching plea shattered everything, and ripping away the chains of indecision, my heart surged with raw, unfiltered courage. With every ounce of strength, I sprinted across the room, not thinking, only feeling, embracing the fire growing within me. And in that moment, as I collided into the fray, the line between hope and despair blurred altogether, shrouding us in chaos, the cabin now a wordless story veering toward an unseen precipice, the ominous darkness of betrayal thickening around us. Zara. I screamed again, just as the figure lunged, and I saw him poised to strike. The intimate dance of fear drilling through my chest, uncertainty weaving itself into existence. I squeezed my eyes shut for just a moment, as if willing to summon a chance, a destiny written in the stars as I launched myself into the depths of uncertain fate, and then everything exploded into darkness. What I didn't see was the crushing truth lurking just beyond the chaos. Deep at the heart of it all, the stranger was hiding a secret, one threatening to turn my world upside down. But the fierce urgency of the moment overwhelmed everything. My heart rattled against despair, unaware as it flirted with tragedy, and the truth lived, seething, patiently waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. In the pitch-black void, time seemed suspended, a murky silence engulfing me as I floated between consciousness and the echo of reality. I blinked rapidly, struggling to piece together the fragments of my surroundings. Cries erupted in the distance, a haunting symphony of despair that tugged insistently at the threads of my heart. Suddenly, the stillness shattered, and I felt a searing pain shoot through my side. I gasped, the taste of metal lingering on my tongue. I was lying on the cold floor of the cabin, my hands instinctively reaching for the wound. Panic surged, urging me to rise, to fight for Zara, to reclaim control of our fate before it slipped irrevocably away. Lena. The voice tore through the rattle of my thoughts, cutting like a lifeline sent across a turbulent sea. I pushed myself up, wincing as the pain coursed through me again, but I could not linger in the shadows of longing any longer. Pushing against the floor, I finally managed to struggle to my feet, adrenaline igniting my resolve. I squinted through the dim light, the cabin swirling with silhouettes, but one figure became emblazoned in clarity, the familiar curve of Zara's silhouette, draped in a ragged blanket, clutching something tightly to her chest. Zara! I cried out, relief crashing into desperation, but my sister only met my gaze through smudged tears, and where I had anticipated joy, I found only horror. Lena, you shouldn't have come back. Stay behind me. I commanded, instinctively positioning myself in front of her, ready to face whatever darkness threatened us. But my heart sank as I glanced around, realizing my earlier fight had drawn blood not just from me but from the stranger. Where is he? I panted, searching the dim corners of the room, my fists clenched in preparation for an inevitable confrontation. Zara shook her head, racked with fear. He pulled a knife. It was an accident, and I felt. I thought he was, her voice faltered, unraveling threads of her tale in scattered fragments. I took a shaky step toward her, the sight of dried blood staining her robes fueling an almost primal urge to protect. How had it come to this? It was more than choice, it was betrayal, twisting the knife deeper between us all. We need to go, now. I urged, casting my eye toward the only window, a fragile veil separating us from freedom. But another wave of uncertainty surged through me. What if he comes back? Zara's voice quivered as she tightened her grip on the object in her arms. He said he was protecting me, that we could trust him. But he's armed and dangerous. I snapped, desperation clawing at my insides. He hurt you. This isn't about trust right now, it's about survival. Zara's eyes widened with fear and realization, and in that moment I saw, buried beneath her terror, the remnants of the sister I once knew, bold, fierce, unbroken by the encroaching shadows. She had always been the protector, instinctively drawing strength from love and loyalty. Before I could brace for a response, the cabin door swung open, splintering the silence, and for one heart-stopping moment, all was still. Then, he appeared tall and imposing, the shadow of danger underlining each step he took into our space. You're still here, he said in a low voice, as if he had witnessed some sacred drama unfold. Relief and rage collided within me, electrifying the air, yet somehow, I sensed something different in his demeanor, a flicker of vulnerability lurking behind the bravado. Get away! I shouted, standing firm, my body tense to protect Zara. What do you want from us? His gaze softened momentarily, eyes flickering between me and Zara, darting away shame. Guilt, and I caught the briefest glimpse of doubt flickering beneath his hardened exterior. I was trying to help. He claimed, an edge of frustration creeping into his tone. Help? I echoed, incredulous. By hurting her? By lying? The tension in the room thickened, coiling like a serpent prepared to strike. You don't understand what I've been trying to protect you from, he replied firmly, an intensity like a storm brewing behind that facade. They're coming for you. For both of you. Who? I demanded, heart racing, trying to pierce through the mist of his words. What are you talking about? But before he could answer, Zara gasped, clutching the object she had hidden against her chest. Wait, you mean them? Suddenly, the door behind the stranger slammed open with a deafening bang, the initial glimpse of another figure cascading into the room like an avalanche. It felt as if time had slowed again as all eyes turned wide with shock. Lena! Zara! You have to run! He yelled, and recognition hit me like a punch. It was Liam, our childhood friend, the one who had sworn to keep us safe from harm. A light snuffed but now raging back to life right at our darkest moment. Liam! I screamed, hope fluttering in my chest even as dread lingered. What's happening? He found you. Liam shouted breathlessly, taking swift steps toward us. The cult hive come for the key. The weight of his words crashed against me, thrumming with a truth I couldn't yet grasp. The key? My head whirled, searching back through memories of whispered tales, artifacts lost in the love of family lore. But before I could ask, the figure in our room moved forward, defiance radiating from him. "That I won't let you take them," he said, standing between us and Liam, hands poised to fight. So many emotions intersected: fear, anger, miscommunication, and just as I felt the tenuous strands of fate draw taut around us, revealing a deeper danger I'd barely begun to comprehend. In that charged moment, staring into the eyes of those I loved, I realized that some truths are meant to burn to ash before they can awaken a new fight. And the world around us seemed to tilt dangerously, the lines between foes and allies blurring as I realized we were running out of time. "Who's the real enemy?" I whispered, just as another echo of approaching steps signaled more darkness shadowing us more than I ever imagined, a darkness reclaiming its piece of our fragile existence. Just as I whispered, "What does it mean to be the key?" Everything had changed in an instant, and the path ahead splintered into 1,000 uncertainties, realms of betrayal and loyalty forging fresh scars as unexpected alliances began to surface against the encroaching storm. I stood frozen, the weight of uncertainty bearing down heavily as my heart thundered in my chest. The whispers of the past echoed around me, each word heavy with meaning, drawing together the threads of destiny that had become so tangled. How could I understand the significance of being the key, especially now, with darkness encroaching from every direction? "Lena, we don't have much time," Liam urged, urgency ringing in his voice like a clarion call. I tore my gaze away from the shadows lurking in the corners of the cabin, refusing to be a prisoner of fear any longer. But with that decision came the responsibility of confronting the unknown, and I could feel the swell of emotions around me: anger, sorrow, but most of all, bravery. "Liam, what do you know?" I demanded, snapping my back straight, forcing conviction into my words. This was now a fight for more than just survival. It was about unearthing the truth that had kept our paths hidden in obscurity for far too long. "What does it mean to be the key?" A flicker of recognition washed over Liam's face, and he glanced between the stranger, whose defenses were still bristling, and Zara, her eyes wide with fear. "It means you have something valuable, something powerful that they want. That's why they're coming for you," he stated bluntly. That I was 2 steps ahead yet stranded, chaos thrumming at my back. An intense pulse rushed through me, my blood, my heart, my very soul burned with the urgency of finding my father's truth, the truth intertwined with my very bloodline. But my gaze flickered over to Zara, holding her tight against the surges of fear. "What about you?" I said, turning once more to the stranger, whose resolve had dimmed slightly under the weight of my inquiries. "Are you with them? Or are you trying to protect us?" "I swear, in trying to help you," he replied, even though doubt lingered like a specter around his response. "But you're in the crossfire whether you want to be or not." Behind him, uncertainty rippled, an unease that tremored within all of us, not just fear of what might come, but loss, and betrayal, and the unkind truth of circumstance. Just then, the door rattled as if resonating with the urgency of our situation, and the shadows closed in, testing our every resolve as chaos threatened to consume us. "We need to get out of here," I insisted, determination igniting every fiber of my being. With the truth hanging so tantalizingly close, I could almost feel its warmth wrapping around me, yet here we were, still stumbling through the darkness like moths drawn to an unquenchable flame. "Forward," I said, pointing decisively to the back door, determination swelling within my chest. "We don't know what's waiting outside, but standing still is not the answer." As I stepped towards the door, pulling Zara with me, a glimmering light flickered from the air. "Lena, wait!" Liam called, but before he could catch up, I pushed through the threshold into the outside world. Instinctively, I glanced back, caught up in the moment between choice and consequence. The cabin loomed behind us, a relic covered in the dust of despair, but as we stepped forward, the world opened up, welcoming yet threatening, filled with darkened trees that reached to the sky like claws scraping against fate. What lay before us merged seamlessly with shadows, only to reveal glints of something beyond, forms fleeting through the night like whispers on the wind. "There!" Liam shouted, motioning across the clearing. "We need to reach the river. There's a hidden path we can take." Without hesitation, we rushed forward. Behind us, a heavy sound echoed through the trees, and adrenaline surged through my veins. The guards were closer, their shouts marking the horizon of our faith. With every stride, exhilaration rushed through me, still haunted by disbelief. We were stepping into the unknown. I didn't look back, I had sworn to save Zara, and now I must be her shield. Stay close. I shouted, urging Zara to keep behind me as we clung to each other, weaving our way through the dense forest like shadows ushered by fate. I could feel the power coursing through me. But instinct screamed at the danger, then came a sound, a rustling, a crack upon the leaves, and something unfamiliar joined our flight. I dared not look back, knowing the specter of betrayal lurked in the shadows, releasing tendrils that coiled around scattered memories of trust. Instead, I held my breath, pushing my legs to move faster. That we emerged at the riverbank, the silver water flowing beneath the quiet moonlight, shimmering with promise. This way! Liam cried, leading us to a narrow passage veiled by brush that ran alongside the water. My heart quickened, perhaps here was our way to freedom, and with each step, I could hear the guards fading, their angry shouts drifting further into the ominous night. But as we passed into the hidden path, a sudden flash caught us. Something dark and ominous darted through the treetops, a haunting figure moving gracefully, yet terrifyingly close. Run! I shouted, a fierce urgency seizing me as the shadows lunged forward, closing the space between us. Liam sprinted ahead, pulling Zara behind him, and I snapped into formation right behind them, thick branches snagging at my clothes as I called forth every ounce of strength coursing through my body. The rush of survival flooded through me, spurring me onward, but then I heard the unmistakable screeching of the figure above, jagged and menacing, piercing through the night air. Lena. The shadows churned as I turned back, only to see the stranger glint of unexpected loyalty lighting in his gaze. You must embrace what you are. You're the key. His voice cut through the chaotic night like a blade, igniting sparks of understanding within me. Was that what the fates wanted? Was I truly destined to unravel the lies? Just as confusion shot through me like fire, Zara tugged on my shoulder, her eyes wide with fear. Move! She urged frantically, and as I charged forward into the narrow passage, I felt the daunting weight of reality stinging with urgency, the deep need for clarity when every heartbeat throbbed with uncertainty. Together! I shouted as we hurtled through the brush, and as the chill of truth threaded through the air, I felt a surge of energy awaken within me, a pulse of fire igniting the very core of my being. And then I understood that in that fleeting moment, truth crystallized, and pain surged like a river that ignites flames with its flow. My father's past, the choice to save Zara, the awakening of hidden powers within might all converged into a singular purpose. I might be the key, but I would break every chain that sought to bind me to darkness. Just as we reached a clearing by the water's edge, the shadows gusted around us, fanning sparks of urgency. This way! I called to Zara and Liam as we ducked behind the overgrown brush, all while the torrent of fear in my veins morphed. This would be my fight, a bitter struggle, but ultimately a path toward liberation. Just as I fueled my soul with resolve, the world exploded around us, a tumultuous cacophony of guards thrumming toward reckoning. But instead of despair, I found determination, and as the darkness loomed behind, I realized I would transform the very narrative. It would not consume me, but rather weave into a story of my making. Remember, I whispered fiercely as we prepared to move, every word emerging from the depths of both pain and love. We are stronger together. Fear cannot capture us. We are our own strength. With that as my battle cry, I charged into the unknown, ready to face whatever darkness awaited us. In that moment, everything shifted. I had chosen not only for my fate but for Zara's, and the aching responsibility to rekindle the light of truth hung around me like a second skin, stoking warmth against the cold grasp of despair. Blood sang in my veins, whispering of forgotten promises and the bravery yet to be discovered, and as we plunged forward, I realized beneath the shroud of uncertainty, the dawn was breaking just beyond the horizon. Together, we would claim our truth, and with that resolute surge, I knew this was my awakening, our awakening, and nothing in the world could dim the light of that truth again. Together, we would find our way home.